Welcome back. My name is Dak. Today we are reading the Boy Scout Handbook, 11th edition. We are now on Chapter 11, First Aid. Now, to be perfectly candid with you, I'm sure this is full of good information. However, I'm not a doctor. I have actually no medical education, really, or experience. So I'm going to take this entire book's word for it. However, this is not meant to be any sort of medical advice. I would also say something I like about this, though, is there is an expectation that the young men will get hurt, that the scouts will get blisters, that they'll get cuts, that they'll get wounds, that bad things will happen. And it's not saying we need to avoid bad things. I mean, I'm sure that's part of it, but also like we just need to be prepared for when bad things happen and what you do to fix it. Anyway, that's what I like about this. Let's dive into it. First aid. First aid must be both expert and friendly. You must know what has to be done and how to do it quickly and neatly. No bungling. First Aid Merit Badge Pamphlet 1939. Wow, real 1939 language. No bungling. The main thing that I would tell any scout before anything else is get an adult. Honestly, if anyone is in anything more than a stub toe or like something like that, you need to get an adult. A baseball hits your teammate in the face and his nose begins to bleed. What do? Get an adult. An automobile knocks a woman to the ground. Blood spurts from a gash in her arm and her legs looks broken. What do? Get an adult. A child feels sick. There's a box of poison spilled on the floor. What do? Get an adult. A hiker in a t-shirt and shorts is wet and cold. He begins shivering and stumbles. What do? Get an adult. What you do is give first aid. What is first aid? First aid is the first help given the victim of an accident or other health emergency. If more attention is needed, first aid treatment keeps an injured or ill person as safe as possible until trained medical personnel arrive. The first aid you will learn while earning the Tenderfoot second class and first class badges, and the First Aid Merit Badge is a good introduction to basic ways of sizing up an emergency and providing treatment. In years to come, you might want to enroll in more advanced first aid courses taught by the Red Cross and by other safety and outdoors related organizations. There's always more to learn, and keeping your skills sharp will require regular practice and review. What first aid should do? Stop life-threatening dangers. Protect an injured or ill person from further harm, and get proper medical help for the victim. Personal first aid kit. Carrying a few first aid items on hikes and campouts will allow you to treat scratches, blisters, and other minor injuries, and to provide initial care for more serious injuries. Everything will fit in a self-sealing plastic bag. Get in the habit of taking along your personal first aid kit whenever you set out on a scout adventure. Personal first aid kit. Adhesive bandages, sterile gauze pads, adhesive tape, moleskin, soap, antiseptic, scissors, latex gloves, mouth barrier device for rescue breathing or CPR, plastic goggles or other eye protection, pencil, and paper. Patrol/troop first aid kit. A complete first aid kit will provide a patrol or troop with supplies to treat a wide range of injuries. Items can be carried by one scout in a fanny pack that is easy for everyone to recognize. At a minimum, the kit should contain the following: roller bandage, 2-inch, roller bandage 1-inch, adhesive tape, alcohol swabs, assorted adhesive bandages, elastic bandages, sterile gauze pads, moleskin, gel pads for blisters and burns, antiseptic, triangular bandages, soap, scissors, tweezers, safety pins, splint, latex gloves, plastic goggles/safety glasses, mouth barrier device for rescue breathing or CPR, pencil, and paper. Not true. The problem with these things is whatever you need in an emergency is what you need, but you don't know you need it until you need it. Things that are very common, blisters, soap, scissors, those things are absolutely fine. But like a mouth barrier device for rescue breathing or CPR, that happens 1 out of every 10,000 instances. Accident scenes. The scene of a bad accident can be scary. Injured persons might be screaming. Witnesses might be too stunned to help. Try to stay calm and use the skills you have in the best way you can. If more experienced first aiders take charge, tell them you are a scout and are ready to help. They might ask you to gather first aid supplies, look after persons who are not injured, go for help, or simply stay out of the way. Whatever your role, be positive. Your confidence could help others lose their fear. First things first. Treat accident victims by performing these steps in this order. 1. Approach with care. Is the scene safe? Guard against being injured yourself. 2. Treat hurry cases. Hurry cases are conditions that threaten a victim's life. Stop breathing, no heartbeat, severe bleeding, internal poisoning. As you begin, send someone to call for help. Treat every accident victim for shock. Examine every victim for other injuries that might require first aid. Plan what to do next. If help is coming, keep the victim comfortable. Watch for any change in his or her condition and treat accordingly. Approach carefully. Look around to see what caused the accident. Then be sure you don't get hurt as you approach the victim. Be aware of slippery footing, steep slopes, electric wires, traffic, and any other hazards. Dial 911 for an emergency. Dial 1-800-764-7661 for Poison Center. Get help. Help is usually just a telephone call away. In most parts of the United States, you can reach emergency services by calling 911 or by dialing 0 for an operator. Take a few minutes now to look in the front pages of your telephone book for information on contacting emergency services in your area. Backcountry adventures can take you far from telephones. An injured person who can walk alone or with some support might be able to hike to a road. A large group of scouts might be able to build a stretcher and carry an accident victim. If injuries are serious, though, it might be best to treat the victim where he is and send 2 or more scouts for help. Write down the following information and send the note with the messengers: location of the victim, description of the injury or illnesses, what time the injury or illness occurred, any treatment the victim has received, number of people with the victim and their general skill level, what special assistance and equipment might be needed, including food, shelter, or care for non-victims. Hurry cases. Most first aid you use will be for minor injuries, a scrape, a bruise, a sore ankle. You will have plenty of time to decide what to do and then to do it. However, stopped breathing, no heartbeat, severe bleeding, and internal poisoning are called hurry cases because they pose an immediate threat to a victim's life. They require quick action on the part of a first aider. Whenever you come upon an injured person, make a quick assessment of his condition. The assessment should take no more than 15 to 20 seconds. Is he breathing? If he seems to be unconscious, pat him on the shoulder and ask him if he is all right. Place your ear near his mouth and nose where you can hear and feel the movement of air. Watch for his chest to rise and fall. Is his heart beating? Feel for a pulse in the neck artery beneath his ear, just below his jawbone. Is there severe bleeding? Open rain gear or any outer clothing that might be hiding wounds from your view. Is there evidence of poisoning? Consider the victim's appearance and behavior and any clues suggesting what he might have swallowed. Once you have completed the quick assessment, begin treatment and have someone telephone or go for help. Several people working together can treat different symptoms. When you are the only person providing first aid, start by treating the conditions that pose the greatest threat in life. Stop breathing. A human brain will survive without oxygen no more than about 5 minutes before suffering serious damage. At normal temperatures, a person cannot live without air for more than 10 minutes. Rescue breathing can help someone alive until he recovers or help arrives. First aid for stop breathing. Open the airway. The airway is the passage that allows air entering the mouth or nose to reach the lungs. A person cannot breathe if his airway is blocked by the back of the tongue, a chunk of food, or anything else. If a victim is unconscious, place him on his back. Clear his tongue away from his airway by pressing on his forehead with one hand and lifting his chin with the other to tilt the head back. If you think his neck might be injured, keep his head still and thrust his jaw forward. Look in his mouth for gum, food, or other obstructions. Remove them by sweeping them out with your index finger. Someone who is choking on food might grasp his throat to signal that he is unable to breathe. Treat by performing the Heimlich maneuver. See page 296 through 297. Protect the airway of any accident victim. If he begins to vomit, turn him on his side so that the vomit comes out of his mouth rather than getting into his lungs. 2. If the airway seems to be open and the victim is still not inhaling and exhaling, begin rescue breathing. Place a mouth barrier device over the victim's mouth. That will protect both of you from orally transmitted disease. While maintaining the head tilt or jaw thrust position, pinch the nostrils, seal your mouth over the victim's mouth, and blow into it to fill his lungs. For a child, seal your mouth over both the mouth and nose, then breathe gently. Watch to see if the chest rises. Remove your mouth and take another breath. Look at the victim's chest to fall as he exhales. Repeat every 5 seconds for anyone over 9 years of age, every 3 seconds for anyone 9 or under. If the victim's chest does not rise and fall, no air is reaching the lungs. Follow these steps. Reposition his head and jaw so that the tongue does not block the airway. Check again for obstructions in his mouth. Perform the Heimlich maneuver to remove anything lodged in the throat. Resume rescue breathing. Continue until a medic tells you to stop or it becomes physically impossible for you to keep going. Techniques for performing rescue breathing are constantly being improved. Check with your local Red Cross chapter for current methods and training opportunities. That's so true. I don't know what the current method is for CPR. I feel like it's different nowadays than it used to be. A modern day, could tell us what a modern day test could probably tell us what the benefits are and what the downsides are of doing it this old-fashioned way. Heimlich maneuver. During a meal, a man lurches from his chair and clutches his throat. His face turns red and he seems unable to breathe. Ask, "Are you choking?" If the victim nods yes and he cannot speak, cough or breathe, perform the Heimlich maneuver. Do not interfere with a person who is conscious and can speak, cough, or breathe. He is still getting air into his lungs. Encourage him to cough up the object and be ready to administer first aid if it is needed. Have someone call for help. I feel like this is like in the 90s. There was a bunch of movies about using the Heimlich maneuver and CPR and stuff. I feel like it's not nearly as social nowadays. We don't talk about the Heimlich maneuver or CPR like we did in the 80s or 90s. I feel like it was a trend. Someone in the comments, let me know. How to do the Heimlich maneuver. Food caught in the throat is like a cork stuck in the neck of a plastic bottle. Nothing can get in, but squeeze the bottle the right way and the cork will pop out. That's the principle behind the Heimlich maneuver. Here's how to do it. Stand behind the victim. Put your arms around his waist and clasp your hands together. The knuckle of one thumb should be just above his navel but below his ribcage. Thrust your clasped hands inward and upward with enough force to pop loose the obstruction. Repeat the Heimlich maneuver until the obstruction clears or medical help arrives. If a choking person is very large or has lost consciousness, use this version of the Heimlich maneuver. Lay him on the floor and sit straddling his thighs. Place the heel of one hand of the victim's upper abdomen slightly above his navel, but below the rib cage. Place your other hand on top of the first and press upward with quick thrusts. With your index finger, probe the mouth for an unconscious victim to remove any obstructions. Be ready to start rescue breathing. Repeat this Heimlich maneuver until the obstruction pops loose or medical help arrives. If you ever choke on food and cannot breathe, clutch your throat with your hand. That's the universal sign for choking, and it might bring someone to your aid. If there is no one nearby, perform the Heimlich maneuver on yourself by pulling your fist into your upper abdomen, or you can bend over the back of a chair and force it against your belly. Thrust to the abdomen can cause rib fractures and other injuries. Use only mannequins or other training devices to practice or demonstrate Heimlich maneuvers. I feel like also this book is only geared towards only males or performing stuff to only male victims. Never have to perform a Heimlich maneuver for a woman. Never have to do it for someone that's, not another boy yourself. No talk about what happened to for babies or elderly people. I guess it makes sense. I mean, we're talking about Boy Scouts, boys hanging out with other boys. Most likely people are going to be other people your age. No heartbeat. An accident or medical condition that causes a person to stop breathing can also stop his or her heart. You can try to provide both oxygen and blood circulation for such a victim by performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. Learning CPR requires careful instruction from a certified teacher. Perhaps you can learn and practice CPR at Scout meetings. The Red Cross offers CPR classes too. Your Scout leaders can help you find training to learn this life-saving skill. I remember I was CPR certified for a while, back when I was a camp counselor, when I was a lifeguard at a Boy Scout camp. Cardio means heart, and pulmonary means from the Latin word for lung. Thus, cardiopulmonary resuscitation includes breathing for a victim and keeping his or her blood circulating. There we go. There's the his or her blood circulating. That's probably a copy and paste from something else, just because, other places in the book, they're not recognizing the his or the her. Heart attack. Heart attack is one of the major causes of death in the United States. Exercise, a good diet, and avoiding tobacco and drugs will help you keep your own heart healthy. First aid training will prepare you to help someone else who is having heart trouble. 5 common warning signs of heart attack. 1. Uncomfortable pressure, squeezing, fullness, or pain in the center of the chest behind the breastbone. The feeling might spread to the shoulders, arms, and neck. It can last several minutes or longer, and it might come and go. It isn't always severe. Sharp, stabbing twinges of pain usually are not signs of heart attack. Unusual sweating, for instance, perspiring even though a room is cool. Nausea, stomach distress with an urge to vomit. Shortness of breath, a feeling of weakness. Should anyone display these symptoms, get medical attention for the victim right away. Be ready to begin CPR if his or her heartbeat and breathing stop. Severe bleeding, a broken window, a car crash, a careless moment with a knife, axe, or power tool. Suddenly, blood is spurting from a nasty wound. Without quick first aid, a person suffering a severe cut can bleed to death in a matter of minutes. Boy Scouts of America recommendation. Treat all blood as if it were contaminated with blood-borne viruses. Do not use bare hands to stop bleeding. Always use a protective barrier, preferably latex gloves. Always wash exposed skin areas with hot water and soap immediately after treating the victim. The following equipment is to be included in all first aid kits and used when rendering first aid to those in need. Latex gloves, to be used when stopping bleeding or dressing wounds. A mouth barrier device for rendering rescue breathing or CPR. Plastic goggles or other eye protection to prevent a victim's blood from getting into the rescuer's eyes in the event of serious arterial bleeding. Antiseptic for sterilizing or cleaning exposed skin areas, especially if there is no soap or water available. Alright, so again, I'm an attorney. I think from a legal perspective, this rule comes because once upon a time there was a lawsuit. Someone treated something without using gloves and got sick and then sued, and because Boy Scouts of America has deep pockets, they didn't sue the individual with the virus, they sued the Boy Scouts of America, and so therefore they have to put this warning in here. So, for all future references, they're kind of covered. That or insurance and lawsuits, those are the reasons why warnings and these type of guidelines things happen. Cravat bandage. Make a cravat bandage from a scout neckerchief or triangular bandage. 1. By folding the point down to the long edge. 2. Finish by folding 2 more times to the long edge. 3. Tie all bandages in place with square knots. First aid for severe bleeding. Direct pressure on a wound will stop most bleeding. Put on latex gloves from your first aid kit. With a clean cloth or sterile dressing as a pad, use the palm of your hand to apply firm pressure directly over the wound. Don't waste time. When clean material is not close by, use a handkerchief, shirt, or whatever else you can reach. While pressing on the wound, raise the injury above the level of the victim's heart. Direct pressure is almost always the treatment of choice. Bleeding can sometimes be further slowed by pressing hard on an arterial pressure point in the victim's armpit or groin. Try using pressure points if direct pressure over broken bones will cause further injury, or if the nature of a wound makes direct pressure ineffective. Oh, that's another point. Very 90s trend. I don't feel like I hear the word pressure point nearly as much. As a young man, heard terms pressure point all the time. Now I don't feel like I hear it ever. Don't remove a direct pressure pad that has become soaked with blood. Instead, place a fresh pad over the first one and continue applying pressure. When the bleeding has stopped, hold the pad in place with a cravat bandage, an athletic wrap, strips torn from clothing, or something else close at hand. Bind the pad firmly, but not so tightly that circulation is cut off. If the bandage is on an arm or a leg, periodically feel for a pulse further out on the limb, at the wrist or just behind the ankle bone. No pulse is an indication the bandage is too tight. In all cases of serious bleeding, get the victim under medical supervision. If you have touched any blood or other body fluids, wash your skin with soap and water or cleanse with an antiseptic as soon as possible, and change out of clothing that might have come in contact with blood. Internal poisoning. Among children, poisoning is the most frequent cause of accidental death. Young children will swallow almost anything: fuels, poisons, insecticides, battery acid, peeling wall paint, pills from a medicine cabinet, weed killer from garden supplies. If you see items in your home that could be dangerous to a child, move them to a safe storage. Some mushrooms, fungi, berries, and leaves are poisonous. If swallowed, eat no wild plants unless you are certain they will not harm you. Overdose of drugs can also be poisoning emergencies. A poisoning victim might suffer nausea and stomach pains. He might vomit, and there might be burns around his mouth. His breathing might be different from normal. Often the most important sign of poisoning is the presence of the poison: open pill bottles, spilled household cleaners, or other evidence of what might have been swallowed. First aid for internal poisoning. Immediately take any poison containers to a telephone. Call the Poison Control Center toll-free at 1-800-764-7661 or your local emergency center at 911 or an operator, and follow the instructions you are given. Treat the victim for shock and monitor breathing. Do not give anything by mouth unless you are told to do so by medical professionals. Save any vomit. Use a bowl, cook pot, or plastic bag. It will help a physician identify the poison and give the right treatment. Shock. When a person is injured or under great stress, his circulatory system might not provide enough blood to all parts of his body. That's called shock. A shock victim could have some, all, or none of these symptoms. Again, right here you see his, not his or her. A feeling of weakness, confusion, fear, dizziness, skin that is moist, clammy, cool, and pale. A quick, weak pulse, shallow, rapid, and irregular breathing, nausea and vomiting, extreme thirst. Injuries are almost always accompanied by some degree of shock, but the victim might not be affected right away. Treat every accident victim for shock, even if no symptoms appear. Prompt first aid could prevent shock from setting in. First aid for shock. Eliminate the cause of shock by restoring breathing and heartbeat controlling bleeding. Eliminate the cause of shock by restoring breathing and heartbeat, controlling bleeding, relieving severe pain, and treating wounds. Make sure the airway always stays open for breathing. Have the injured person lie down. Raise his feet 10 to 12 inches to move blood from his legs to his vital organs. Keep him warm by placing plenty of blankets, coats, or sleeping bags under and over him. Call or send someone for emergency medical care. Never leave an accident victim alone. Fear and uncertainty can increase shock. In a calm voice, assure him everything is being done to care for him. A person who appears to be unconscious might still be able to hear you. Keep letting him know you are there. Other first aid cases. Fainting. Fainting occurs when the brain does not receive enough oxygen. It can be caused by getting up too quickly, standing too long, or by fright, bad news, or breathing foul air. A person about to faint might become pale and dizzy, then fall to the ground. First aid for fainting. Keep the victim lying down until he recovers. Loosen his collar and raise his feet. If he does not improve right away, treat for shock and get medical help. Anytime you feel faint, sit down and put your head between your knees, or lie down and raise your legs. Cuts and scratches. Cuts and scratches are wounds, opening in the skin and tissues that can allow germs to enter the body and cause infection. First aid for small wounds. Wash scratches and minor cuts with soap and water. Applying antiseptic can help prevent infection. Keep the wound clean with an adhesive bandage. On camping trips, clean and rebandage small wounds daily. First aid for larger cuts. Treat large cuts by using direct pressure to stop bleeding. Then keep the wound as clean as you can to limit infection. Cover an open wound with a sterile gauze pad or clean cloth folded into a pad. Hold the pad in position with tape, a cravat bandage, or other binder. Anyone suffering a serious wound should be treated for shock and seen by a physician. Puncture wounds. Puncture wounds can be caused by pins, splinters, nails, and fishhooks. all can be dangerous because they allow germs into a wound that is hard to clean. First aid for puncture wounds. Encourage the wound to bleed to help remove anything that might have been forced inside. Use tweezers sterilized over a flame or in boiling water to pull out splinters, bits of glass, or other objects you can see. Wash the area with soap and water. Apply a sterile bandage and get the victim to a doctor. Removing a fishhook. Someone snagged by a fishhook should cut the line and, if possible, let a doctor remove the hook from the flesh. In the backcountry, you might have to do the job yourself. Push the hook farther in until the barb comes through the skin. Snip off the barb with pliers, wire cutters, or nail clippers. Ease the shank of the hook back out through the point of entry. Wash and bandage the wound. Nosebleed. A nosebleed can look bad, but it will usually stop in just a few minutes. First aid for nosebleed. Have the victim sit up and lean forward to prevent nose from draining into his or her throat. Pinch the nostrils together to maintain pressure on the flow. Apply a cool, wet cloth to the victim's nose and face. If bleeding is severe or if there are other injuries to the face and head, position the victim to keep blood out of his airway. Treat for shock and call for help. Burns and scalds. A spark from a campfire, boiling water spilled from a pot, rays of the sun on bare skin, a bolt of lightning. The causes of burns are many. Treatment for a burn depends on its degree. First aid for burns and scalds. Get the victim away from the source of heat that caused the burn and treat any hurry cases. Stop breathing, no heartbeat, or severe bleeding. Then try to assess the degree of burn. First degree burn. A mild burn will cause the skin to be tender and it might also become red. Treat immediately by holding the burn under cold water or applying cool, wet compresses until there is a little or no pain. First aid. I've had a burn before. I remember at a scout camp out, I remember picking up a rock, but the rock had been used right around a camp area, and so it was super hot, and I ended up burning my hand. Super painful. Burns are no fun. If blisters form, the burn is more serious. Second degree burns. If blisters form, the burn is more serious. Place the injury in cool water until the pain goes away. Let the burn dry, then protect it with a sterile gauze pad. Do not break the blisters. That makes them open wounds. Do not apply butter, creams, ointments, or sprays. They are difficult to remove and can slow the healing process. Third degree burns. This is the most severe burn. Skin might be burned away and some flesh will be charred. Since nerves are damaged, the victim might feel no pain. Do not try to remove any clothing, as it might be sticking to the flesh. Do not apply creams, ointments, or sprays. Wrap a clean sheet around the victim. Treat him or her for shock and get immediate medical attention. Do not apply salves, ointments, jellies, or anything else to burns. The one exception is the gel pad, a sterile dressing made especially to cover first, second, or third degree burns. The gel pad provides pain relief and helps shield wounds from infection. Physicians can remove it easily when further treatment is required. Sunburn. Sunburn is a common injury among people who enjoy being outdoors. Repeated burns can cause long-term skin damage and the potential for skin cancer. People with lighter skin are most at risk, though others are not immune. Prevent sunburn by using plenty of sunscreen with a sun protection factor SPF rating of at least 15. Reapply sunscreen after swimming or if you are perspiring. A broad-brimmed hat, long-sleeve shirt, and long pants provide even more protection. The thing about a long brim hat, I have only ever seen old men wear them. Like, young men hardly ever wear those type of hats. That's a super old man thing to do. Blisters on the foot and hand. Blisters are pockets of fluid that form as the skin's way of protecting itself from friction. Blisters on the feet are common injuries among hikers. Avoid getting blisters by wearing socks or shoes that fit, by changing your socks if they become sweaty or wet, and by paying attention to how your feet feel. First aid for blisters. A hot spot is a warning that a blister might be forming. As soon as you notice it, treat a hot spot or blister with a donut bandage to relieve the pressure on your skin. Cut moleskin in the shape of a donut and fit it around the injury. Shape several more donuts and stack them on top of the first. The donut bandage will keep pressure off the injury. A gel pad made of the same material used to treat burns can be applied directly over a blister to reduce friction and speed healing. Follow the instructions on the bandage. Used together, a gel pad and a moleskin donut provide maximum relief for blisters and hot spots. If you must continue hiking even though you think the blister will break, it might be a good idea to drain the fluid. First, wash the skin with soap and water, then sterilizing a pin in the flame of a match. Prick the blister near its lowest edge and press out the liquid. Keep the wound clean with a sterile bandage or gel pad and surround it with a donut bandage. Sprained ankle. A sprained ankle occurs when you bend your foot far enough to strain tendons and ligaments. Minor sprains cause only mild discomfort, but more serious twists can temporarily disable you. First aid for a sprained ankle. If you suffer an ankle sprain during a hike and must keep walking, don't remove your shoe or boot. It will support your ankle, and if you do take it off, the injury might swell so much you won't be able to get your footwear back on. Reinforce the ankle by wrapping it, boot and all, with a triangular bandage, neckerchief, or some other strip of cloth. As soon as you no longer need to walk, take off your shoe and rest with your leg raised. Reduce swelling with cold, wet towels or an ice pack. The compression of an athletic bandage might also help. Seek medical care. As a young man, I feel like I was getting twisted ankles all the time. I feel like it was just, part of life. As an adult, don't ever get twisted ankles anymore. I, make sure not to find myself in positions, but like running on uneven surfaces, running without care, that was just such a young man's game. Head injuries. A head injury can be very serious and should be handled with extreme urgency and care. A cut to the head can cause severe bleeding. Call for help immediately. If the victim is bleeding but conscious, have the victim hold a clean cloth over the wound and apply pressure. Keep the victim as comfortable as possible and wait for help to arrive. Use the triangular bandage described below when the entire scalp must be covered. Bites or stings of insects, ticks, chiggers, and spiders. Oh my gosh. Okay. Chiggers are the absolute worst. I got them when I was my very first Boy Scout camp out. Just like ruined the whole thing. It was just terrible. The bites or stings of insects, spiders, chiggers, and ticks can be painful. Some cause infection. First aid for bites and stings. Bee and wasp stings. Scrape away a bee or wasp stinger with the edge of a knife blade. Don't try to squeeze it out. That will first force more venom into the skin from the sac attached to the stinger. An ice pack might reduce pain and swelling. Tick bites. Ticks are small, hard-shelled arachnids that bury their heads in the skin of a warm-blooded vertebrate. Protect yourself whenever you are in tick-infested woodlands and fields by wearing long pants and long-sleeve shirt. Button your collar and tuck the cuffs of your pants into your boots and socks. Inspect yourself daily, especially the hairy parts of your body, and immediately remove any ticks you find. If a tick has attached itself, grasp it with tweezers close to the skin and gently pull until it comes loose. Don't squeeze, twist, or jerk the tick, as that could leave its mouth parts in the skin. Wash the wound with soap and water and apply antiseptic. After healing with a tick, thoroughly wash your hands. Chigger bites. Chiggers are almost invisible. They burrow into skin pores, causing itching and small welts. Try not to scratch chigger bites. You might find some relief by covering chigger bites with calamine lotion or by dabbing them with clear fingernail polish. Oh my gosh. This is a thing about Boy Scouts. Like, when I was a young man, or like when I was a child, like up till like 11 years old, never had any of these things. Never had any ticks, never had any chigger bites. Then I started going on these campouts, and boom, all of a sudden I've got tick bites, chigger bites. All these things happen. Why? Because you start going outdoors more. And then I became an adult, stopped going outdoors as much, went to college, got a job, found myself doing office work. Don't get these. I feel like this was a phase of life. Why? Because I went out and camped so much. Spider bites. The bite of a female black widow spider can cause redness and sharp pain at the wound site. The victim might suffer sweating, nausea and vomiting, stomach pain and cramps, severe muscle pain and spasms and shock. Breathing might become difficult. The bite of a brown recluse spider doesn't always hurt right away, but within 2 to 8 hours there can be pain, redness, and swelling at the wound. An open sore is likely to develop. The victim might suffer fever, chills, nausea, vomiting, joint pain, and a faint rash. Victims of spider bites should be treated for shock, then seen by a physician as soon as possible. Jellyfish stings. The jellyfish and Portuguese man-of-war have stinging cells on their tentacles. When touched, the toxins in those cells attach to the skin and cause a sharp burning pain. First aid for jellyfish stings. Call for medical help immediately. People who are allergic to jellyfish stings might go into deep shock. Do not wash the affected area with fresh water, as that will cause the release of more toxin. Instead, soak the injury for 30 minutes, unless medical help arrives sooner, in alcohol or vinegar, then use tweezers to remove the remaining tentacles. When helping victims of bites or stings, do whatever you must to avoid being stung or bitten yourself. A first aider who becomes injured could greatly complicate any emergency situation. Animal bites. If the bite of a dog, cat, or any other warm-blooded animal breaks the skin, it is not an ordinary wound. The animal might have rabies, a deadly disease that can be transmitted through the saliva of some mammals. The only way to learn if an animal is infected is to have it caught and tested by medical experts. Snake bites. Snakes are common in many parts of the country, but bites from them are rare. Snakes try to avoid humans and normally strike only when they sense danger. Snake bites seldom result in death. The bite of a non-poisonous snake causes only minor puncture wounds. Red and black, friendly Jack. Red and yellow, deadly fellow. Ooh, fun little phrase. I feel like there's a story here about snakes. Like, maybe it'll come up here in a moment. But it's like, if you get bit by a rattlesnake, what do you do first? Treat the wound or kill the snake? It's like, do you run around trying to get it, exerting energy, letting the venom go through your body? Or do you let it continue to exist, maybe striking other people, but like immediately treat yourself? I feel like there's pros and cons and a debate that could be made about what's the appropriate thing to do. First aid for animal bites. Scrub the bite with soap and water to remove saliva. Cover the wound with a sterile bandage and get the victim to a doctor. Do not put yourself at risk by trying to catch the animal. Call police, rangers, or animal control officers who are trained to do the job safely. The bite of a poisonous snake can cause sharp, burning pain. The area around the bite might swell and become discolored. However, a poisonous snake does not inject venom every time it bites. Using a hiking stick to poke among stones and brush ahead of you when you walk through areas where snakes are common. Watch where you put your hands as you collect firewood or climb over rocks and logs. I have seen a couple poisonous snakes, and I gotta tell you, scariest things in the world. My heart starts beating like 1,000 miles a minute. You start hearing that rattler. Oh, freaks you out. Luckily, I've never actually been bit, but man, they are scary as can be. First aid for non-poisonous snake bites. The bite of a non-poisonous snake requires only ordinary first aid for small wounds, scrubbing with soap and water, then treating with an antiseptic. Snakes are not warm-blooded, so they cannot carry rabies. First aid for poisonous snake bites. Get the victim under medical care as soon as possible so that physicians can neutralize the venom. Remove rings and other jewelry that might cause problems if the area around a bite swells. If the victim must wait for medical attention to arrive, have him lie down and position the bitten part lower than the rest of his body. Encourage him to stay calm. He might be very frightened, so keep assuring him that he is being cared for. Treat for shock. If available, within 3 minutes of the bite, apply a venom extractor such as Sawyer extractor directly over the fang marks and leave it in place for no more than 10 minutes. Properly used, the extractor can remove up to 30% of the venom. Do not make any cuts on the bite. That's an old-fashioned remedy that can harm the victim much more than help him. Do not apply ice to a snake bite. Ice will not help the injury, but it can cause damage to the skin and tissue. Object in the eye. A bit of dust or other foreign object in the eye is almost always painful, and it can endanger vision. I feel like the Bible verse, meet or a mote and beam in your eye and stuff, is applicable here. First aid for object in the eye. Have the person blink his eyes. Tears might flush out the object. If that doesn't work, wash your hands with soap and water and then pull the upper lid down over the lower one. The lower lashes might brush out the speck. For an object under the lower lid, place your thumb just below the lid and gently pull the lid down. Use the corner of a sterilizing gauze pad or clean handkerchief to lift out the speck. If all else fails, get the person to medical care. Hyperventilation. Oh, this one has also happened to me where you just freak out. A person who is anxious or frightened might react by breathing too quickly and deeply. That's not unusual, but if rapid breathing continues too long, it can lead to hyperventilation, an abnormal loss of carbon dioxide from the bloodstream. The victim might feel as though he or she is suffocating and might become dizzy, disoriented, and increasingly fearful. First aid for hyperventilation. Talk quietly to the victim and encourage him or her to calm down and breathe slowly. Again, maybe I'm noticing pronouns too much, but here you see him or her to calm down. I feel like that's kind of rude. All of a sudden you're saying that when you're talking about hyperventilation and anxiety, you're starting to include the female gender. Having the victim breathe into a paper bag might help restore carbon dioxide to the body. While hyperventilation is usually not a serious concern, it is sometimes a symptom of asthma or diabetes. Dizziness and anxiety can be warning signs of a heart attack. For these reasons, someone who has experienced hyperventilation should be checked by a physician. Broken bones. A fall, a violent blow, an automobile accident, and someone might suffer a fracture, a broken bone. When you suspect a fracture, do not move the person. Look for these symptoms. There is an abnormal shape or position of a bone or joint. There is swelling or a bluish color at the fracture site. The victim might have heard or felt a bone snap. The victim feels pain when you press on the skin over the fracture. The victim might not be able to move the injured limb. First aid for broken bones. Treat hurry cases, severe bleeding, stop breathing, no heartbeat. Treat for shock. Allow the patient to lie still right where you found him. Make him comfortable by tucking blankets, sleeping bags, or clothing under and over him. Call a doctor or rescue squad. If the victim must be moved, first splint the broken bone. The saying, "splint it where it lies," is usually good advice. Closed and open fractures. A broken bone that does not cut through the skin is a closed or simple fracture. A broken bone piercing the skin is an open or compound fracture, a fracture plus an open wound. An open fracture is especially dangerous because it can allow bacteria to infect the wound and the bone. Keep an open fracture as clean as possible. Ooh, give me the willies just thinking about it. A splint is any stiff material that can be found to a fractured limb in order to prevent the broken bone from moving and causing further injury and pain. A splint should be long enough to immobilize the joints above and below a fracture. I feel like when I was growing up, broken bones happen all the time. Like, you almost always saw a kid at school with a broken arm or broken leg. I've had both, broken arm, broken leg, but like, I don't feel like I see that nearly as much. Maybe I don't hang around enough kids, but I feel like we don't see nearly as many broken bones, probably because kids aren't going outside as much. Someone comment below. Do we see more broken bones? Is there something to that? Make splints from whatever is handy. Boards, branches, hiking sticks, ski poles, shovel handles, cardboard, folded newspapers and magazines, sections of tent poles. Padding allows a splint to fit better and can make the victim more comfortable. Cushion a splint with clothing, blankets, pillows, crumpled paper, a sleeping pad, or other soft material. Hold splints and padding in place with handkerchiefs, roller bandages, strips of cloth, or whatever else you have. Lower arm fracture. Splint to hold the hand and forearm motionless, placing the splintered arm in a sling with the forearm slightly raised. Will also immobilize the elbow joint. Upper arm fracture. Tie a splint to the outside of the upper arm. Place the arm in a sling with the forearm raised about 3 inches above level, then use a cravat bandage to hold the upper arm against the side of the body. The body itself acts as a splint to immobilize the elbow and shoulder. Collarbone or shoulder fracture. Place the forearm in a sling with the hand raised higher than the elbow. Then tie the upper arm against the side of the body with a wide cravat bandage. No splint is necessary. How to make a sling. Support an injured hand, arm, collarbone, or shoulder with a sling made from a scout neckerchief or larger triangular bandage. Tie an overhand knot in the largest angle of the triangle. Place the sling over the chest with a knot at the elbow of the injured limb and one end over the opposite shoulder. Bring the free end of the sling up to the other shoulder and tie the ends together behind the neck with a square knot. Lower leg fracture. Use 2 splints that are long enough to reach from the middle of the thigh to past the heel. Place 1 splint on each side of the injured limb and bind them together. Thigh fracture. Apply 2 padded splints, one outside the leg, extending from heel to armpit, the other inside the leg from heel to crotch. Bind the splints together. Note, the muscles of the upper leg are strong enough to pull the ends of a broken thigh bone into the flesh, which can cause serious internal bleeding. For this reason, the first aid described here for a thigh bone femur fracture is an early emergency care. The patient should not be moved until a traction splint has been applied by trained personnel. A thigh fracture can pose a serious threat to the victim's life. Get medical help immediately. I feel like that point about get medical help immediately, that should be like the first thing done. All right, moving on now. Skin poisoning from plants. For more information on first aid from poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac, see Chapter 3, Tenderfoot Scout, page 59. Poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac. Heat emergencies. In hot weather, your body adjusts to keep you comfortable. Help it do that by drinking plenty of fluids and resting in the shade when you feel too warm. It might be wise to plan summertime work and play for early morning and evening hours instead of the middle of the day when the temperature is highest. Wear light-colored clothing and shade your head with a hat. Heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion occurs when the body's cooling system becomes overworked. Think of it as an air conditioner running wild. Heat exhaustion can affect a person outdoors or in a hot room. Symptoms can include the following: pale skin that is clammy from heavy sweating, nausea and fatigue, dizziness and fainting, headache, muscle cramps, and weakness. First aid for heat exhaustion. Have the victim lie in a cool, shady place with his feet raised. Remove excess clothing. Cool the victim by applying cool, wet cloths to his body and by fanning him. If he is fully alert, let him sip from a glass of water into which you've stirred a pinch of salt. Recovery should be rapid. If symptoms persist, call for medical help. Heat stroke. Heat stroke happens when a victim's cooling system is so overworked it stops functioning. In simple terms, the body's air conditioner is broken. The victim's temperature soars to a life-threatening level. Symptoms of heat stroke can include the following: very hot skin. Red skin can be either dry or damp with sweat. Rapid and quick pulse, noisy breathing. Confusion and irritability, unwillingness to accept treatment, unconsciousness. First aid for heat stroke. The victim must be cooled immediately. He is in danger of dying, so act quickly. Move him to a cool, shady spot. Cool him any way you can. Remove outer clothing and sponge him with cold water. Cover him with wet towels, wet clothing, or whatever else is handy, and fan him. Place him in a bathtub filled with cold water, or in front of an air conditioning running full blast in a house or car. Use combinations of all available treatments. Keep the victim lying down and comfortable with his head and shoulders slightly raised. Monitor the victim closely. His temperature could go up again. He might vomit, and he might require rescue breathing. Get emergency medical help right away. Dehydration. Water is essential for nearly every body function, including digestion, respiration, brain activity, and regulation of body temperature. Moisture is lost through breathing, sweating, digestion, and urination. If a person gives off more water than he takes in, he is suffering from dehydration. It can affect him in any of the following ways: fatigue, headache, and body aches. Confusion. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and hypothermia can all be caused in part by dehydration. First aid for dehydration. Protect yourself from dehydration by drinking plenty of fluids. That's easy to do on hot summer days when you are thirsty. It is just as important in cold weather when you might not feel like drinking. Drink enough so that your urine stays clear. Having plenty of drinking water in the backcountry can sometimes be a challenge, but you must make the effort. It might involve purifying steam water, melting snow, or carrying all you need from home. For more information on safe drinking water for the backcountry, see pages 255 through 56. Cold emergencies. When you hear of someone freezing to death or dying of exposure, the killer was probably hypothermia, from hypo meaning low and thermia meaning heat. It occurs when the body is losing more heat than it can generate. Flesh exposed to low temperatures or cold wind can freeze, far from the body's core heat. Toes and fingers are especially vulnerable, as are the nose, ears, and cheeks. Avoid cold emergencies by wearing enough clothing to stay warm and dry, and don't forget your hat. Eat plenty of food for energy and drink lots of fluids. If bad weather catches you in the backcountry, put up your tent and crawl into your sleeping bag. Hypothermia. Hypothermia is a danger to anyone who is not dressed warmly enough. Wind, rain, hunger, dehydration, and exhaustion can increase the risk. The temperature doesn't have to be below freezing. A lightly dressed hiker caught in a windy rainstorm is at great risk. So is a swimmer too far out in chilly water. A victim of hypothermia might show any of these symptoms: feeling cold and numb, fatigue and anxiety, uncontrollable shivering, confusion, irritability, makes bad decisions, stumbling and or falling down, loss of consciousness. While one person is being treated for hypothermia, the rest of the group could also be at risk. Be sure to protect yourself and others from getting too cold. Everyone should take shelter, put on dry, warm clothing, and have something to eat and drink. Look out for one another. First aid for hypothermia. Treat a victim of hypothermia by preventing him from getting colder, and if necessary, help him rewarm to his normal temperature. Try any or all of the following methods. Be gentle and patient with anyone suffering hypothermia. Take the victim into the shelter of a building or a tent and get him into warm, dry clothes. Zip him into a dry sleeping bag. Offer an alert victim warm or hot liquids, cocoa, soup, fruit juices. Give him water bottles filled with warm fluid to hold in the armpit and groin areas. If hypothermia is advanced, helping the victim breathe warm, moist air will aid in warming. Be ready to provide other first aid if needed. Seek medical care for the victim. I feel like they're not talking about like body heat, like, getting in there and holding on to a person. But that's kind of weird too. Frostbite. A victim of frostbite might complain that his ears, nose, fingers, or feet feel painful and then numb. Another frostbite victim won't notice anything. You might see grayish white patches on the skin, on his skin, a sure sign of frostbite. Avoid cold emergencies by wearing enough clothing to stay warm and dry, and don't forget your hat. First aid for frostbite. Get into a tent or building, then warm the injury and keep it warm. If an ear or cheek is frozen, remove a glove and warm the injury with the palm of your hand. Slip a frostbitten hand under your clothing and tuck it beneath an armpit. Treat frozen toes by putting the victim's bare feet against the warm skin of your belly. Avoid rubbing frostbitten flesh, as that can damage tissue and skin. You can also warm a frozen part by holding it in warm, not hot, running water, or wrap it in a dry blanket. Have the patient exercise injured fingers or toes, and don't let the injured area freeze again. Get the victim to a doctor. Long-term first aid care. You've treated an accident victim's hurry cases, protected him from further injury, and sent for help. It's time to decide what to do next. The best plan in most cases is to make the victim comfortable and wait for medics to arrive. Continue to treat for shock, keep the airway open, monitor his condition for any changes, and be ready to provide any other treatment the victim might require. In the backcountry, medical help could be hours in coming. It might be wise to set up camp and shelter the victim with a tent. Rather than lifting a badly injured person into a tent, you can slit the floor of a standing tent and then place the tent over him where he lies. Be aware of your own needs too, and those of others around you. Stay warm and dry, and have enough to eat and drink. Some group members might be frightened or disoriented by what they have seen. Don't let them wander off. Giving people specific jobs to do, fixing a meal, gathering firewood, making camp, can focus their attention and help calm their concerns. Moving an injured person. The decision to move an accident victim should be made carefully. A victim of serious injuries should be removed by first aiders only in case of immediate danger, out of a river or the path of a fire, for example, or away from an unstable avalanche area. Even if you must hurry, use your hands to stabilize injuries as much as you can to minimize further injury. Victims of less serious injuries can sometimes move on their own or with assistance. Rescue from a smoke-filled room. A smoke-filled room is a hazardous environment. Moving an injured or unconscious person should be done quickly, but you must also avoid putting yourself at risk. Rushing into a dangerous place to help someone will do no good if you also become a victim. If your safety will be threatened, wait until trained rescuers arrive. A few of the ways a person can be moved to safety from a smoke-filled room are these. With both hands, grasp his clothing and drag him toward you. Roll him onto a coat, blanket, tablecloth, or whatever else is handy, and drag him on that. Get behind the victim, reach under his arms, grab his wrists, and haul him out of the room. Assist and hand carries. Walking assist. Someone who has suffered a minor accident or who feels weak can be assisted as he walks. Bring one of his arms over your shoulder and hold onto his wrist. Place your free arm around his waist. One person carry. Kneel in front of the victim with your back to his belly. Grasp his hands over your chest and carry him piggyback. Avoid straining your back by keeping it straight and lifting with your legs. Four-handed seat carry. Two first aiders can transport a conscious person with this carry. Each bearer grasps his own right wrist with his left hand. The two bearers then lock hands with each other. The patient sits on their hands and places his arms around their shoulders. Two-person carry. The bearers kneel on each side of the victim. Each bearer slides one arm under the victim's back and one under his thighs. The bearers grasp each other's wrists and shoulders, then rise from the ground with the patient supported between them. Stretchers. When a person must be removed for some distance or his injuries are serious, he should be carried on a stretcher. Moving someone on a stretcher can be difficult and exhausting work requiring a large number of rescuers. Whenever possible, use a litter or rescue basket made specifically for transporting injured persons. If none is available, consider the following. Lash together 3 metal pack frames and pad them with sleeping bags. Start with 2 long poles longer than the victim is, tall, strong branches, tool handles, oars, tent poles, fold blankets, or a tent fly over the poles to form a stretcher. During an evacuation, stretcher bearers should trade off with each other to conserve their strength. At least one rescuer should monitor the patient at all times in order to note any changes in his or her vital signs. Doing the best you can. Good Samaritan laws legally protect anyone making a good faith effort to help the victim of an injury or illness. Whenever you are confronted with a first aid emergency, use the skills you have to the best of your ability. Remember to watch out for your own safety as well as that of others in the area. Treat hurry cases first, then put together a plan to get professional medical attention for the victim. No one expects you to have the knowledge of a physician. However, scouting's history is filled with stories of scouts who use their training to help others, sometimes even saving lives. Learn all the first aid you can and review it often. Perhaps one day you will be able to do just the right thing at a time when your actions make all the difference. And that's it for Chapter 11. If you watched so far, please be sure to share your thoughts and feelings on first aid and any stories you might know of creative stories. And we'll see you next time. All right, thanks. Bye.